Fifth grade lesson 3.4 is rounding decimals. This one should go pretty fast. It's more of just a review of how to round numbers because it's no different rounding decimals than it is rounding numbers like you did last year. Our essential question is, how can you use place value to round decimals to a given place? Let's unlock the problem. The gold frog of South America is one of the smallest frogs in the world. It is 0 and 386 thousandths of an inch long. What is this length rounded to the nearest hundredths of an inch? Underline the length of the gold frog. It is this. Oops, I need a better color than that. 0 and 386 thousandths. Is the frog's length about the same as the length or the width of a large paper clip? And right now I don't know because I would have to measure the length of or width of a large paper clip. So I'm going to go back to that. Let's go ahead and use the place value chart to round the number as they want us to. They want it to round to the nearest hundredth of an inch. So we just need to remember our place values. Write the number in a place value chart and circle the digit in the place which you want to round. So they went ahead and put the number 0 and 386 thousandths, but they want it rounded to the hundredths place. So let's circle that. That's the hundredths place. Now look to his neighbor to the right. So here's the number we're rounding to. Look to his neighbor to the right. There he is. Is that number a 5 or higher or below a 5? Because that 5 is right in the middle. It's that midway point. So if it's a 5 or higher, we'll round this number up. If it's lower than 5, that midway point, then we'll leave it alone. We're not going to round it up. We'll leave it an 8. This is higher than 5. So we're going to round that up to a 9. And then we will get rid of any following number. Now we can get rid of that. So we're looking at 0.39 hundredths or 0 and 39 hundredths of an inch. So we'll write that here. Oops, 0 and 39 hundredths of an inch. We can also just use place value. The little grass frog is the smallest frog in North America. It is 437 thousandths of an inch long. What is the length of the frog to the nearest hundredth of an inch? So I would write them out. I would underline the number I'm rounding to. I'm looking at the next number over. That is above 5 or higher. So I would round this number up. 3 becomes a 4, and then I drop that down. I drop the 7 off of there. So rounded 437 thousandths, rounded to the hundredths place would be 44 hundredths. Same idea as when we were rounding whole numbers last year. It's the same process. What number are you rounding to? Look at his neighbor. Is it a 5 or higher? Round up. If it's a 4 or lower, leave it alone. What's the length of the frog to the nearest tenth of an inch? Okay. So back to starting with the 437 thousandths, but now I'm rounding to the tenths place. So I'm going to look at the tenths place, look at his neighbor. Oh, well, that 3 hundredths is less than 5 or is 4 or under, right? So I'm not going to round this underlined number up. I'm going to leave it alone. And then I'm going to drop everything that follows it. So it would be 0.4. And of course, by now you know 0.5 is half. So 0.4 is just a little less than half. So the length of the frog to the nearest tenth of an inch is 4/10. And that's a little less than half an inch. So that's pretty small. That's a tiny little frog. So to the nearest hundredth of an inch, the frog is about 0 and 44 hundredths of an inch. And to the nearest tenth of an inch, the frog is about 0 and 4/10 of an inch. It's a small little baby frog. Okay, and then to answer this question up here, I measured a paper clip, and the paper clip's width, if I was just looking at width, was 0 and 25 hundredths of an inch. So that's smaller than the frog's length here. But the length of it, because they asked both, they said about what does it compare in the width and what does it compare in the length. The length of it is about almost 2 inches, 2 full inches almost. So that it's smaller than the length, right? This is the tree frog we were talking about. It's 0 and 39 hundredths. It's smaller than the length of the paper clip, but it is bigger than the width of a paper clip. Let's look at an example. The Goliath frog is the largest frog in the world. It is found in the country of Cameroon in West Africa. The Goliath frog can grow to be 11 and 815 thousandths of an inch long. How long is the Goliath frog to the nearest inch? The nearest whole inch is what they mean by that. So they want us to round to the whole number, which is generally what we'll do when we're looking at decimals. We try to round it to the nearest dollar, the nearest whole number. In this case, we're going to round it to the nearest inch over here to the ones place, basically. If they ask to the nearest inch, we're going for that ones place. So let's go ahead and put the 11 and 815 thousandths onto the place value chart, 11 and 815 ending in the thousandths place. What place do we want to round it to? We're going to circle that digit. We want to round it to the nearest inch, meaning the ones place. So that just takes practice in how they translate that, what they mean by that, to the whole value. Okay? Look at the neighbor. The neighbor here on the other side of the decimal. You can cross if you're going to the right to check that neighbor, and it goes over the decimal. That's okay. It's like 8 dimes, right? 8 tenths is what we're looking at. That is greater than 5. So I'm going to round this number up, and we're going to call it 12 inches long. Done. So round that up, and then we get rid of everything else. So this becomes a 2, 12 inches long. So that with practice gets faster and faster. Explain why any number less than 12 and 5 tenths and greater than or equal to 11 and 5 tenths would round to 12 when rounded to the nearest whole number. So let me clarify what they're asking there. They're saying, why is 12.4 going to round to 12 whole? And also 11.5 is also rounding to 12. So this is 12 and a little bit more, but not quite half, right? 0.5 is that halfway mark. So this is 12 and almost a half, but not quite. So it's closer to 12 than it is to 13. And 11.5 is 11 and a half exactly, 11.5 exactly. So it's kind of right in the middle. We call it closer to 12 than it is 11. It's 11 and more, halfway between 11 and 12. So we round it to that, 12-ish. Okay, let's try this. We're going to round 14 and 603 thousandths to the nearest hundredths place. So let's start by putting the number on our place value chart, 14 and 603 thousandths. I want to round it to the hundredths place. Look at the neighbor. The neighbor is a 3. Well, that is less than 5. So I'm not going to do anything to this number. I'm going to leave it the same, but I'm going to drop this off of there. So I could round it to 14 and 60 hundredths. And you know, with that 0 sitting there without anything sandwiching it in, that is the same amount as 14 and 6 tenths, by the way. Let's round that to the nearest whole number. The whole numbers are on this side of the decimal. These are all fractional pieces. They're not a whole dollar, right? This is 6 dimes. So we want to round it to the whole value. So we have 14 and 603 thousandths, but this time I want to round it to the nearest whole number, and the nearest whole number is that ones place. Look at the next number over in the tenths place, and that is a 6. That is higher than 5, so I will round this number up because 6 is going to get us closer we're 14 and 60 cents, right? That's closer to $15 than it is to $14. 60 cents gets us closer to 15. So we round that up to a 5, and then we get rid of all of that. So rounded to the nearest whole number, it is 15. And with practice, this gets easier and easier, just like it did before last year, especially if you understood the rounding last year. You're picking this up already pretty quickly. If you didn't understand it last year, then the practice will help it fall into place this time. We want to write the place value of the underlined digit, round each number to the place of the underlined digit. Let me erase my mess there. Okay. So they want me to round 0 and 673 thousandths to the hundredths place, and they've underlined that for me. So I'm looking at the hundredths place. I'm going to look at his neighbor, the 3. 3 is less than 5, so I'm not going to round this number up. I'm going to leave him like he is. Remember the pants last year that I said This one says stay the same, don't round up. This one says go up. So we had 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If that neighboring number was a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, we told the number we had underlined to stay the same. And 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If that neighboring number was one of those, we said go up. So if that helps you, feel free to keep using that. Eventually you don't need that anymore. So this 3 is in the 3 leg and says stay the same to the guy that's underlined here. So we're going to end up with 0 and 67 hundredths. Let's look at number 2. We have 4 and 282 thousandths that we want rounded to the tenths place, and it's underlined. So if this is the one we're rounding to, we're going to look at his neighbor, the 8. That is in the up thing. It's closer to 10 than it is to 0. So we round up. So we tell this 2 to go up to a 3, and that leaves us with 4.3, and we get rid of everything else. Okay, we have 12 and 917 thousandths. We want to round it to the ones place, where this 2 is at. We will look at his neighbor. Doesn't matter that decimal there, it doesn't have any effect on it. This is like 9 dimes. You know 9 dimes is almost a whole dollar, right? 9 is in the up leg because it's almost another full dollar. So we round it. We tell this 2 to become a 3, go up to a 3, because $12.90 is basically $13. And we don't have to put that decimal there if we're not going to show the change. We rounded it to that place. We know the decimal lives there. He's just hiding because we don't need him right now. So we round that to 13 to round it to the nearest whole number right there. Name the place value to which each number was rounded. Well, this is just practicing our place values. We had 982 thousandths, and we rounded it to 98, what place value? Hundredths, right? That's all you have to do for this one. Let's take a look at this one. We have 3 and 695 thousandths, and they rounded it to 4. Oh, this 3, look at that 6, that's an up number. It rounded up to a 4. We rounded to the ones place. And finally, we have 7 and 486 thousandths. We rounded it to 7 and 5. What place value is that? The tenths place, yes. So that's all you need to do there. And when you look at it, you can see, oh, sure, they did. Yeah, there's the number. The hundredths place is an 8, which is higher than a 5. So I round that up to a 5, 7, and 5/10. Hopefully this is all clear enough for you to go on Think Central. Hopefully I explained it well enough that you're going to find success there. Good luck.